Hello my friends and welcome to another Tuesday of tutorial. I am Leonardo Perez Nieto, and since some people have been asking me to upload a little bit longer tutorials, I thought of sharing with you a much longer tutorial, one of those that I have at Patreon. Since I am sharing it as is over there, I may thank the sponsors, but don't worry about that. I simply hope it is helpful to you and that you enjoy it. Hello my friend, I'm glad to see you here in this long tutorial of the sphere. Today we will paint with oil paints, and to start we will make a circle with a compass. Previously I toned the canvas with a gray, as you see. This was about 3 days ago and it is already dried totally. Now with a ruler we make a line. This will indicate the border of a table. We mix the color for the background. I'm using zinc white, ultramarine blue, and ivory black. As a note, I normally use the zinc white or flake white when mixing colors to make them lighter, and not titanium white because it is so strong and opaque that kills the color and makes the mix a bit grayish. So the titanium white, which is the brightest white, I use it when I need a very bright reflection and I use it pure. Or also, knowing what I just told you, I sometimes use it to tone down color when I need the tint more grayish or opaque. I am adding in to the background other colors such as sepia, and will be adding a reddish like burnt sienna. I will speed up this section of the background because it is not very interesting and I don't want to have you waiting on this for hours. As you see, I'm adding different colors, blue, gray, sepia, and then I brush them together, I blend them together. This obviously will be in the background and the sphere will be very much in focus, will be very precise, but what is behind I want it to look like very much out of focus, like you cannot distinguish anything except that there are different tones and changes of lights over there way back in the background. That is what is happening right now. I'm doing this painting pretty much a la prima, that is, in one sitting. Pretty much, although at the end I will add some layers. And as you see, I'm leaving the sphere right now with no paint, because this a la prima technique is wet on wet, but I don't want it to get all muddy in the sphere, so I'm leaving the background dry. I mean, with no paint where the sphere goes. Now with a deep yellow, and mainly with burnt sienna, we will paint the table where the sphere is standing. Notice that I am painting from the back to the front. That is, first the very background, then the table, and then what goes on the table. The sphere starting with the shadow, and then the sphere goes on the shadow. So what is closest to us will be last. That is natural because in that case you can paint on top of what you did priorly. And what you painted first will stay behind. Carefully we do the edges. But if I tell you the truth, I'm not being super careful because the edge of the table with the background, I will blur it slightly, mixing the two colors so that we don't have a very sharp edge. And the edge of the sphere, since I am going to paint the sphere on top of it, I don't mind too much if I run over it just a little bit. I'd rather go over it slightly because then as I put the sphere on top of it, it won't show, rather than being a little bit short, because in that case we will get a little gap with no paint. Okay, good. So here we have all the surface painted of the table. As you can see, I added a little bit of green. However, I don't want it to look this flat. So I will be adding other tones and I will pull them like this in a sort of stripes to create like the grain of the wood or something like that. I blurred the edge a little bit as I told you. And now the cast shadow of the sphere. I'm using burnt umber, and maybe I will add a little bit of ivory black in this area close to the sphere, which will be the darkest. Since the paint is wet, we can be mixing the new paint with the one that is already there. I'm considering that the light is above but also slightly to the left and slightly behind, so the shadow will come toward us and slightly to the right. As I say, the darkest will be near the sphere, and then as it goes away from the sphere, I will blend it more with the existing color. The shape of the shadow of the sphere should be like an oval. Unless it is totally on top, of course, and then it would be a circle. Alright, good. Now let's use a blender. That is a brush that is a little bit more fluffy, is softer, to blend a little bit the paint. The one I was using was a synthetic, which is like, it's also soft to medium, let's say a medium hardness. And to mix or to lay the paint originally, I was using Bristol, which is harder. Okay, good. Now we finally have arrived to the fun part, to the exciting, to the sexy part of the painting, which is the sphere. And first, I'm laying a dark reflection with the ivory black pure. This will be on the bottom part. And I will be mixing this dark, the black of the sphere at the bottom, with the shadow. Just because I don't want a sharp edge that can be seen very much here. That's a personal choice. I could have left it like this, showing the edge. But I want to blur it a little bit because usually if it's dark and it's against a shadow, you will lose it slightly. And I think it's very sound, it is good and wise in a painting to have some blurred or lost edges. I wrote an article or a note about the different types of edges for a drawing or a painting, and you can read it here on Patreon. I blend it just a little bit more. Okay, good. Now the reflection of the table. Of course, it will be distorted, curving down like this, because it is on the lower part of the sphere. What is on the upper part will be curving up, and the things that are on the sides will be curving to the sides. We add the paint, and we lay there carefully. I'm using a tone that is just a little bit darker than the one of the table. This time I need to be careful with the edges, because the edge that this time we will put in is the one that it will stay. Not so much at the very bottom, because as I told you, I will blur that with the shadow of the table, of the sphere on the table. I will speed it up a little bit again. I will go a little bit lighter on the upper part of the table, of the reflection of the table. On this side, there will be a reflection of a doorway, which will be black, again with the ivory black. As I want this to be a chrome sphere, the reflection should be pretty contrasting, pretty intense, like the white should be really white, the brightest, and the darks should be black. That will make it look good, very reflective. So here is the doorway. I could have drawn beforehand with pencil or mainly with charcoal everything that I was going to draw or paint exactly to get it perfect. Very, very straight and photorealistic maybe. But as I told you, the intention of this tutorial was to do it a la prima, so that doesn't mean that I could not have done a sketch underneath. However, I think it will look nice, a nice impression to do it directly with the oil paints like this. Even though I know it is not going to be perfect, it is not going to be photorealistic, but I am pretty confident that it will look great. It will give a great impression. We do this other dark reflection up here with an ultramarine blue. Now I will mix a gray for the wall of the back. I do it with the titanium white, ivory black, and a little bit of king's blue, just to give it a tad of a tone. As you see, I often mix with the spatula, especially when I mix a good amount of color. I think it makes this easier, better, and faster than with a brush. And also, everything gets stuck to the brush, so the spatula is usually better. Before using the gray that we just mixed, I will use some titanium white to paint the reflection of the windows. I'm using this pure. If anything, just with a little bit of solvent and linseed oil. I have been using for most of this painting just a little bit of mineral spirits to dilute the oil paint. Although if I feel it a little bit stiff, I can use a little bit of linseed oil. There will be two windows on this side. Which is the side of the windows? That will be the only two windows. But at the top we will place some lighting. It is easier to do the edge which is further away, like the one I did first with white, because it is natural for the flow of the hand and of the brush, while this other edge that I'm doing right now is sort of backwards for the brush. So one needs to do it carefully. Here will be the lighting that I mentioned earlier. There will be some big lights on top. As I said, it is easier to do the edge that goes with the swing of the head of the brush, and it is more difficult to do the edge that goes to the back of the brush. So what I do is that I do that badly, but then I can put the color next to it, and then I have again a natural swing with the end of the brush. Like in this case that I am adding the blue to the back of the white, because that back of the white was difficult to do. Here will be the second window, right here. Obviously it will be smaller than the first one because of the perspective and the distortion of the sphere. And here on top, more lights. The wall between the windows. Very good. I'm using a flat brush number 2 for all of this. It's pretty thin. The wood on the bottom looks pretty flat and boring to me, so I am adding some reflections, one on each side. That will make it look more like a sphere. Even if maybe they are not so realistic, but they look very good, I think. And the wall on the back. I want the floor over here a bit darker to give more contrast. And so that we don't have that large gray space in the back, let's add some squares, like they can be pictures on the wall or something like that, some decoration. Since I want this to be an office, why not laying here a large mouse pad or mat or something like that? Black, also for contrast. I feel that it is getting a little bit muddy because the brown paint is wet and I'm adding the black one and there is a lot of it, so it is a mess. So I will take some of it with a rag. And now I will be able to place the black one much easier and cleaner. Here I will paint something resembling a printer. And down here some more objects. I want it to look like a busy office. To make it even more interesting, let's paint some trees out the window. Some green, but not intense because it is a little bit washed out due to the light. There is a lot of white light that washes this green. Or it should, I think. Very good. That looks nice, don't you think? Here the how you call the side of the window, like the frame of the window, and that should be very light because it is catching light. And the other one. We may add the little wires that are holding the lamps. On the left side, I think we are losing the sphere against the background, so I will add a very light white to differentiate it. As you see, I'm laying my hand on a pole that goes all the way up to the easel so that I can be safe and because all the paint is wet. And some little white reflections down here. It is very shiny, so it should have a lot of reflections. Everything should reflect on the ball. Let's make the table a little bit lighter, the brown of the table lighter, on the upper part or close to the mat. And then we will blur it with existing paint. And the good thing, and what I love about oil painting, is that it stays wet for a long time. So it allows you to do this kind of thing, to come back and mix it in. With acrylic, for example, you cannot do this. And some more little reflections of things here and there. Okay, good. I let it dry for about 3 days, and now I use phthalo green with a glazing medium to do a glazing, a layer, a transparent layer on the background. This to make the sphere stand out even more. Because I think the gray of the sphere with the gray of the background is not doing the best to make it stand out. And we give an almost transparent layer to the wood. This will integrate it with the rest. I'm using the same medium but almost no color. Now with the glazing medium in burnt sienna, I'll give a layer to the sphere, very light. But this will really make it come to life. My glazing medium is turpentine of Venice, just a drop, with linseed oil and mineral spirits. These last two at a 50-50 in a little container of those to mix medium, and with a drop of the turpentine of Venice. I'm doing it with so little pigment that this is almost invisible, but gives it a very slight copperish touch that brings it to life, I think. Well, we're getting to the end. I hope this was helpful and that you enjoyed it. And I will see you soon with the next long tutorial.